So my all-time favorite director, Quentin Tarantino, just praised one of my most disappointing movies of the year. But when I stop and think about it, it's actually not all that surprising. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Well, no, to me, I actually think one of my strengths is my storytelling.
Yeah.
Because I actually am committing to telling a story. I like it when somebody tells me a story, and I actually really feel that that's becoming like a lost art. And Hollywood that's what we did better than anybody else in the world. We told a really good story. Right. You know, Europe was where you had character-based films or mood-based films, but America, we told a story. We're the worst at it now, as far as I'm concerned.
So we are now just a few weeks removed from the release of Joker 2. And I'm going to be painfully honest with you. I think I've said all I can really say about this movie at this point.
Will you shut up?
If you don't know how I feel about it by now, then you are either new here or you haven't been paying attention. There is a laundry list of reasons why I do not like this movie, and I have expressed them all over the past several weeks. And contrary to what some people may say, myself and others are entitled to feel this way. But here's the thing. Unlike some people on the internet, I don't have a problem with anyone who feels differently about this movie than I do. The only thing I've ever had a problem with is when people try to dismiss my opinion by saying things like, oh, you went into it just wanting to hate it, or you just don't understand it. Those people, because anyone who knows me knows that those two things couldn't be further from the truth. That being said, a very notable name in the filmmaking industry has come out and expressed his feelings on Joker 2. And it just so happens to be someone I have immense respect for, and someone that I consider to be my all-time favorite director. And of course, I'm talking about Quentin Tarantino.
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
Now, his unapologetic reaction to Joker 2 might surprise some people, but if you know him in the way that I know him, it actually makes a lot more sense than people think, and I will explain how. So Quentin Tarantino has praised Joker 2 by saying, quote, Todd Phillips is the Joker. He's saying F you to the movie audience. He's saying F you to Hollywood. He's saying F you to anybody who owns stock at DC and Warner Brothers. Okay, so here's the thing. I actually agree with his overall assessment of the film, because Joker 2 very much was all of those things that he just mentioned. I just don't personally believe, from my perspective, that that approach worked for this movie.
That's right, it stinks!
You see, Quentin Tarantino is a rebellious filmmaker. He's never been one to work within boundaries. He's never been one to not do things that people say he should not do. And in a lot of ways, that is the very reason that I love his work so much. Because he is very good at executing his unique and rebellious vision by any means necessary. That man has a perfect filmography, and I stand by that. And I am in no way questioning his film literacy, obviously. Something like Joker 2 excites him, and you know what? Under any other circumstance, I would probably be excited about it too. But here's what I've noticed while talking about this film for the past several weeks. A lot of people who praise Joker 2 weren't as high on the original film as I was. And I think that Quentin Tarantino would fall into that category, because if I remember correctly, he had a somewhat lukewarm reaction to the original.
Is it just me? Or is it getting crazier out there?
So he quite literally went into this movie without the built-up anticipation that some of us had. He also went into it without the admiration for the first film that some of us had. So taking all of that into consideration, I can understand why someone like that could find enjoyment in Joker 2. Because Joker 2 is quite literally everything that the first film is not. Plus, Quentin Tarantino doesn't have to experience the added sting of being a part of yet another fandom that is basically being told to go f*** themselves. We all know that audiences and fandoms have grown tired of that. So Todd Phillips can say f*** the audience all he wants, but the audience basically said f*** your movie in return.
That makes sense.
Do I believe that Todd Phillips at least partially made this movie as an FU to the studio and to the stockholders? I do. And he did so because he clearly did not want to make this sequel in the first place. But here's the thing, execution is everything. And just because you thought something sounded cool or rebellious on paper doesn't mean that it's actually good in the final product. There have been many movies throughout the course of film history that have forced the audience to look in the mirror, and that also shine a light on the BS that's going on in Hollywood. There's also been many movies that take big creative swings that challenge what we know about the characters and the story. The problem is Todd Phillips went about doing all of this in the worst way possible. He did it in a way that's not about starting conversation, it's just about being a troll with a budget.
What an idiot! Oh, what a loser!
I've never been one who feels the need to stifle a creator's creativity and tell them how to tell stories. In fact, one of the things I value most when watching a new film is this movie showing me something that I've never seen before? Quentin Tarantino movies do that for me. Todd Phillips did that for me with the original Joker. He tried to do it again with the sequel. The problem was his intentions behind it. His goal was to subvert expectations in the worst way possible and, in effect, ruin what had already been established. And he did it as a way of sticking it to the people who liked his original film. It felt very petty and very weak. As much as Todd Phillips wants everyone to believe that this was the plan from the beginning, I do not believe that for a second. Because we already know that he originally had no intention of making this sequel.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
So if he hadn't made it, the last shot we would have seen of Arthur Fleck is him roaming through the halls of Arkham as a fully realized Joker. We need to stop with the revisionist history just because people want to bend over backwards to defend this movie. If Todd Phillips didn't want to make a sequel, then he shouldn't have made a sequel. And I don't care who comes out of the woodwork to defend it, it doesn't change anything. Because it didn't work for me, and it didn't work for a lot of other people, and it's okay for us to say so. Martin Scorsese himself could have came out and called The Last Jedi a masterpiece, and it wouldn't have changed how I feel about that movie. And this changes nothing either. I don't feel any differently about Quentin Tarantino, and I definitely don't feel any differently about Todd Phillips or Joker 2. I do not believe that this film will age well and that people will come to appreciate it, because to me there was something that was very clearly wrong from the conceptual level when creating this film. I do believe that this film will go down as a Last Jedi level debacle that ruins the already bad perception of WB and DC.
Y'all be cool. Shut up.